Good morning. Today is Sunday. It is Hey Adar Aleph Tafshin Ayin Tes. We are in Teres Menachem Sefer Mamar Tafshin Yud Gimel. In the Mamar of Yud Beis Tammuz, the Bramaschel and Daas on page Kuf Tzadik Ches. And we'll start from 4 lines from the top. The line starts with Lecho, the full stop, Ve'al Yedei HaNesoyin. Just quickly to recap, we're learning about Havayahu Elikim, and just to point out, I'm having some coffee, but I already made a bracha on it. So the Rebbe we're learning about Havaya and Elikim. Hashem's name is Havaya and Elikim, the giving force, the withholding force, the revealing force, the concealing force, the unlimited force and the limited force, and how they are all one. They're both one. The Rebbe is now taking that concept and translating it into Avodas Hashem, what it means to us in man's service of Hashem. And he explained that in the man's service of Hashem, there are 2 modes of service. One is limited and one is unlimited. One is rationality based and one is beyond rationality. And the Rebbe explained that it's necessary to have the super-rational approach as well, on top of just the regular rational approach, because the rational approach is limited. And the Rebbe explained that these are actually express themselves in 2 different types of Avodas Hashem, serving Hashem. One is called Avodas HaBirurim, the service of Hashem of refinement, and the other one is Avodas HaNisyan, the service of Hashem of tests. And the Rebbe explained that in tests itself, so in other words, the tests is the super-rational way of serving Hashem. And in this way of serving Hashem, there are different levels. The highest level being the test of the Akedah that Avram was presented with, the binding of Yitzchak on the altar. And the Rebbe explained what was the test. The test was not whether he would bind him or not, because that was neither a test for Avraham or Yitzchak, and that's why, in fact, Yitzchak is not focused on we call it the test for Avraham. We don't focus on the test that it was for Yitzchak, because the actual binding on the Akedah and being offered up as a offering to Hashem wasn't a test for Avraham and Yitzchak, because they were what is called a merkava le'elokus, completely nullified to the will of Hashem, to godliness. Or another way of saying it, whatever Hashem wanted, they wanted. So if Hashem wanted him to be an offering, he was an offering. The test was that it was he was presented with an irrational situation. Rationally contradictory situation. On the one hand, Hashem had previously told him, Ki b'Yitzchak yikari l'chazara. In Yitzchak, your seed in Yitzchak's offspring will be called your seed. In other words, your line will continue, your nation will continue through your son Yitzchak. Now, in order for that to happen, Yitzchak has to be married and have children. And then all of a sudden Hashem tells him, take Yitzchak and bring him up on the altar. This was, of course, before Yitzchak got married and before Yitzchak had children. It's a physical impossibility to have children once one is offered up as an offering to Hashem. So it was the test was, it made absolutely no sense. It was irrational. And Avram's response was that he did not even doubt or think for a moment. It didn't even enter in his mind to think, hang on a second, how does this work? He went ahead and he did it with agility, by Yashkem Avram, so on and so forth. So what happened through this test? That's where we're up to at the full stop, 4 lines from the top on Kuf Tzadik Ches. Valideya HaNesoyin, through the test, Nisgala Itzel Avraham B'chinas HaYechidah Shebenefesh. What was revealed by Avraham? Which aspect of his soul, which level of his soul was revealed through this test? Yechidah Shebenefesh, the very highest level of the soul, the essence of the soul. It's known that the idea of tests reveals the level of Yechidah Shebenefesh, the very essence of the soul. Now what happens? And from the point of view of Yechidah Shebenefesh, the nisoyin, the test becomes nullified. Hainu, what does that mean? It becomes nullified. She'emdim ba nisoyin. Where do you get the fortitude to withstand such a test? Where does one draw the strength, the ability to be presented with such a situation, which is completely irrational, makes absolutely no sense, and not even doubt or think for a second that something is wrong, and just go ahead and do it? That comes from the Yechidah Shebenefesh, the very essence of the soul, which is beyond everything. Beyond revelation, beyond seichel, beyond everything, beyond rationality. So that emanates from there, to withstand the test. And then, v'royim, from that point of view, you see that to begin with there was no test. As Hashem said to Avraham, I will not desecrate my covenant and the utterances of my lips. I will not change, which means to say, when I said to you, take your son, right, Yitzchak, and bring him up on the altar, I didn't say to you, slaughter him. I said, Ella ha'alehu. What's the expression in Vayhi Achar, in the Pasha of the Akedah that we say? Right? And offer him up, lift him up, right? Onto, as an oila, on one of the mountains that I will show you. Askasei achsei. Once you've brought him up, now you can take him down. I didn't actually say slaughter him. Right? Therefore, also this concept of that Hashem said to you that your line, your offspring will be from Yitzchak, is always in existence. Meaning to say that even when Hashem told Avraham, it wasn't that Hashem told Avraham, I'm making a covenant with you that your seed will continue from Yitzchak. Then he said, you know what, I'm going to test you, I'm going to tell you shechtim. So for a moment I sort of changed my mind, temporarily, let's say, until I told you, you know what, forget about it. You withstood the test, now you don't really have to go through with it. That wasn't the vort. The vort was that I never changed my mind. Even when I told you to bring Yitzchak upon the altar, I never said to you, and I never intended actually, that you should slaughter him, offer him up as an actual sacrifice, totally. Just physically take him, put him onto the altar, bind him. Once you've done that, the test is over. So therefore, it was never really a contradiction to Kibi Yitzchak Yikare L'Chazara, that the statement that I promised that I made to you, that your seed will continue through Yitzchak. Correct.
And you wouldn't think he'd slaughter him first, just to burn him out?
Well, obviously, let's put it this way. I mean, let me just finish the line. It means that after he withstood the test, Mizgala became revealed. Let's begin with it had no existence, the test. In other words, what I thought, what could have seemed to be a contradiction or a problem, really wasn't.
It's still a hell of a test.
So let's put it this way. In a certain sense, the way the Rebbe is explaining it here, it means to say that, and by the way, this language, when it said, when I said to you, bring him as an offering, I didn't say slaughter him. This is not the Rebbe's take on it. This is not the Rebbe's position. This is from the Chazal, right? From the sages. So what's the word? On the surface, the way it seems, Hashem phrased his request in such a way that it lended itself to interpretation. Right? You're quite right. It says, V'ha'alei sham la'olah. And I think even according to some of the Roshim, in fact, Yitzchak's neshama did depart on the altar. And but be that as it may, from the way the Rebbe explains it here is that Hashem phrased his request in such a way which lended itself to be interpreted that he should bring him as an offering. He should go through with the act of the sacrifice. But really and truly, Hashem never said that and never really intended that. He just wanted it to lend itself to that interpretation. Right? So far as Avraham was concerned, from his point of view, it didn't occur to him to say, 1 second, does Hashem really mean that I should shecht him? Maybe he just means, that never occurred to him. Maybe Hashem just means that I should bring him up and then he'll tell me to take him down. So far as Avram was concerned, is Hashem said to him, bring him up as an early offering. It was a complete offering. He had to go through with it. So from his point of view, he withstood the test. After he withstood the test, Hashem said, look, you could think that it was a contradiction to what I said to you earlier, it wasn't. That statement always remained intact, that Yitzchak will be the line that will continue your seed. Why? Because even when I said to you, bring him up as an offering, all I really meant was, bring him up. And as soon as you've done that, you fulfilled my request, and now you can take him down. Azay is a masbir though, right? Was a weiter. Now, so what happens through this test? What does that test have to do with us? If we're talking about Avodas Hashem, man's service of Hashem, and the Rebbe said that in tests you have many levels. You have the test of Leman Anasena Yelech B'Tirosim, that at the lower level one could be tested in such a way where the person is then faced with the dilemma: should I follow Hashem's word or not? Should I give up despite what's being thrown at me, or because of what's being thrown at me, or do I carry on cleaving to Hashem? That is for people that are not tzaddikim. Tzaddikim don't have such a test. They cleave to Hashem under any circumstances. So the ultimate test is Avraham Avinu's test. What was it? That he didn't even doubt Hashem's promise. It was he didn't. It was his connection was mitzad yechidish ben nefesh. It revealed that his connection to Hashem is at the highest level. So what was the test? Are you serving Hashem at the highest level, or is there something there still that you might not be at that level? What does that have to do with people like us? Well, we're clearly not tzaddikim at that level as Avraham Avinu, where we're operating on the level of Yechidish ben Nefesh, the essence of the soul. So he says, through the fact that Hashem tested Avraham, HaYehudi Yerushin, the first Jew, Echad Hoya Avraham was the one and only and the first. This opened up the channel. For all generations, it opened up the channel for self-sacrifice. For all generations that followed him, in a manner that we don't look for the self-sacrifice or for the test. It says Rabbi Akiva, when Rabbi Akiva was one of the 10 martyrs that were killed, which we refer to in we repeat that in the Avodah of Yom Kippur, the Musaf davening of Yom Kippur. So he was in a positive attitude as he was being slaughtered, as he was being killed mercilessly and tremendous torture. So his student said to him, Rabbi Akiva, to such an extent. So he said, all my life, I looked forward and I said, when will I have the opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, to give away my life for Hashem in self-sacrifice? And here I am. So I shouldn't be in this state of mind, right? So Chassidus points out that Rabbi Akiva looked for Mesiras Nefesh. The difference between Rabbi Akiva and Avraham Avinu was that Rabbi Akiva looked for Mesiras Nefesh. Avraham didn't. Avraham was connected to Hashem, whatever it took. Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice, not self-sacrifice. It didn't matter. That wasn't the point. The point wasn't the self-sacrifice. The point was the connection to Hashem at the highest level. So he opened up the channel for all generations that follow to have self-sacrifice for Hashem in the same way that he did, meaning to say that we don't look for it. We don't look for the self-sacrifice. We don't look for the tests. But rather, we are committed to serving Hashem the way we need to. If there's a need for self-sacrifice, then we also have self-sacrifice. But that wasn't the point. The point was commitment to Hashem. So then he goes on, so too it is concerning the righteous in each and every generation. They possess both modes of serving Hashem that were mentioned before, meaning to say the rational way of serving Hashem and the super-rational. Meaning to say that their service of Hashem on a daily basis, as it seems to the outside, it is in matters that are related to rationality. But they also have service of Hashem from the point of view of tests. Similar to the test of Avram, where he didn't doubt Hashem's conduct, serving Hashem beyond rationality. Ukedisa b'medrash, as the Medrash says, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu menasas harashoyim ela tzadikim. Hashem does not give tests to the wicked. He gives tests to the righteous. Shenemar, as the verse states in Tehillim in Psalms, Havayet tzadik yivchon, whom does Hashem test? The tzaddik, the righteous, tzaddik dafke, specifically the righteous. Shemami, because Hashem puts the righteous in such a test. It's a situation where the tzaddik, the righteous man, does not see how rationally he'll be able to withstand the test that he's presented with. Nonetheless, he withstands this test. Through this brings about the revelation of the very essence of a soul. In a manner, the revelation of the essence of a soul is not only in a manner how it affects himself, but not only in his own 4 cubits. This opens up a channel and an instruction, a guide for all the Jewish people, all the children of Israel, all over the world. Starting from those that follow in his footsteps, meaning his followers, those that are, as it were, the Talmidim and the Hasidim of that particular tzaddik or Rebbe. And also those that didn't learn his Torah, or never knew or never heard about him. Nevertheless, his withstanding, this tzaddik's withstanding this test, which makes absolutely no sense, is completely beyond rationality, and there's no way that one can see how he will be able to withstand it. Nevertheless, withstands it. He opens up the channel that everybody Hashem, every single individual should be able to serve Hashem. Also in such matters, in such a way that before that there was no room for it. There was no basis for it according to rationality. And even now, sometimes it seems that there is no way for him to be able to withstand or serve Hashem in this situation from the perspective of rationality. So the tzaddik in a given generation who serves Hashem in this manner opens up the channel for each and every person of that generation to have the ability to serve Hashem in that way as well. I think he's referring over here, being that it's a Mamar of Yud Beis Tammuz, probably to the Frierdiker Rebbe, who in Russia, in the Soviet Union in his time, stood up to the Soviet government in a completely super rational way. Made absolutely no sense for a single individual to be so committed to Yiddishkeit and to education of children and the propping up and the promotion of religious life. When in the Soviet Union, this was the worst possible thing one of the worst possible things you can do, and indeed he was eventually imprisoned as a result, and indeed eventually sentenced to death as a result. And it was only through intervention and miraculous intervention and so on and so forth that all of that was commuted and changed, and he eventually he left the Soviet Union and of course came to America, and the rest is history. Here we are today. So at that point, when he was doing that in the Soviet Union, in the thick of it, it made absolutely rationally no sense. So through his conduct, I think perhaps that's what the Rebbe is referring to, even though he doesn't specify it. Makes sense because it's within, it's a Yud Beis Tammuz Maimer, and the Yud Beis Tammuz we mark the celebration. We celebrate the release of the Frierdiker Rebbe previous Rebbe from Soviet prison. So this is the idea of Avedus and Nisyonos, serving Hashem through tests, which is the Havaya aspect in the Havaya Hu Elikim subject that we're discussing in the Maimer. And then the Rebbe is going to move on, so that's Havaya Hu Elikim. Then the Rebbe is going to, super rational. And then we're going to move on to Ein Oid, the latter part of the pasuk of which the Maimer begins. Ein Oid, there is nothing else. More about that tomorrow.